VEKTOR online. Case file open. In the spring of 2017, a fix existed for a critical software flaw. It was public, it was free, and one company's web portal never received it. Through that single unpatched doorway, attackers spent 76 days inside the credit bureau Equifax and walked out with sensitive records on roughly 147 million people. Names, birth dates, social security numbers, the keys to American financial identity. This is the breach that turned patch management into a board-level conversation, walked stage by stage with the defender view at every hop. Everything here is public record, congressional reports, regulatory settlements, and court filings. Debrief begins now. Stage 1. Reconnaissance. In early March of 2017, a critical vulnerability in Apache Struts, a framework used by countless corporate web applications, was publicly disclosed along with the patch that fixed it. Within days, scanning for vulnerable servers began across the internet. This is the modern Recon reality. Attackers did not need to study Equifax specifically. They studied a flaw, then asked the entire internet who still had it. Equifax's online dispute portal answered, Defender View. When a critical vulnerability goes public, the clock starts for everyone. The visible artifact at this stage is mass scanning against your internet-facing applications, and the defensive question is brutally simple. Do you actually know every system you have exposed, and which of them run the broken component? Equifax's own review later found the vulnerable system was missed by both the patching process and the scans that were supposed to catch it. Stage 2. Access. The portal was exploited through the unpatched Struts flaw, giving the attackers the ability to run their own commands on the web server. From there, they planted web shells, small hidden backdoors that let them return at will through ordinary-looking web traffic. Investigators later counted around 30 of them. Defender View. This is a kill point, and it is the famous one. The patch existed for months before the intrusion deepened. Asset inventory plus vulnerability scanning plus a patch deadline that someone actually owns. That chain of boring controls kills this breach before it starts. And web shells themselves are detectable. New files appearing in web directories, web processes spawning system commands, pages that take input but appear in no code repository. Each shell was a flare on the server for anyone watching file integrity. Stage 3. Discovery. Once inside, the attackers explored, and what they found made the breach catastrophic. According to the congressional investigation, they located a file share containing unencrypted usernames and passwords for other internal systems. Plaintext credentials sitting in files. The doorway had opened into a key cabinet. Defender View. This is a kill point. Credential hygiene decides whether an intruder stays a website problem or becomes a database problem. Secrets belong in a vault with access logging, not in spreadsheets on a share. The detection opportunity is equally real. An account belonging to a web application suddenly browsing file shares and reading credential files is behavior that endpoint telemetry and file access auditing can surface if anyone has defined it as abnormal. Stage 4. Privilege escalation. With harvested credentials, the attackers stepped up from the compromised portal into dozens of other databases, authenticating as legitimate internal accounts. They did not need exotic exploits for this stage. The passwords they found were the privilege escalation. Defender View. Watch the artifacts, a single source system authenticating to many new databases in a short window. Service accounts logging in from machines they have never touched. Queries against tables an application has no business reading. Database activity monitoring exists precisely for this pattern. The lesson is uncomfortable but useful. Your escalation path is whatever your weakest stored credential allows, and the attacker only has to find it once. Stage 5. Lateral movement and collection. Over 76 days, the attackers ran thousands of queries across dozens of databases, carving out personal records in small pieces. They compressed the results, split them into archives, and pulled them out through the same encrypted web channels the portal used every day. Defender view. This is a kill point, and it is the one that stings most. The exfiltration traffic was encrypted, and the device that should have been inspecting that traffic had an expired certificate, which meant the inspection was effectively blind for months. When the certificate was finally renewed, the suspicious traffic became visible almost immediately, and the breach was discovered within days. The monitoring existed. It was simply not operational. Certificate inventory on security tooling is not paperwork. It is the difference between 76 days and one afternoon. Stage 6. Impact. The stolen data covered roughly 147 million people. Names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and for a subset, driver's license and credit card details. This was not ransomware. Nothing was encrypted, nothing was destroyed, and that is what made it severe. The damage was permanent disclosure. A social security number does not rotate like a password. Defender view. Impact at this scale is measured in what was readable, which makes data minimization and encryption at rest part of the kill chain conversation. Records that are tokenized, segmented, or simply not retained cannot be carried out the door. The question for defenders is not only who can reach the data, but why so much of it is reachable from one place at all. Stage 7. Fallout. The breach was disclosed in September of 2017, and the consequences rewrote the rulebook. The chief executive resigned. Congressional investigations dissected the failure chain in public. Equifax agreed to a settlement with regulators that could reach roughly $700 million. And in February of 2020, the United States Department of Justice indicted 4 members of China's military for the intrusion, charges that remain allegations, as the accused have never appeared in a United States court. Defender view. This is a kill point in the organizational sense. Every control that failed here, patching, credential storage, certificate upkeep, had an owner, a budget, and a paper trail. Fallout lands on governance. The post-incident question that matters is not which tool was missing, but which existing process was allowed to quietly stop working. Where it dies. 4 controls, 4 chances. First, patch what is exposed with an enforced deadline and a verified asset inventory, because a public critical vulnerability plus an internet-facing server is not a risk. It is a countdown. Second, get secrets out of files, into vaults, with access logging, so one compromised web server cannot inherit the whole company. Third, keep your monitoring alive. Expired certificates on inspection devices blinded this defense for months, and renewing one ended the breach in days. Fourth, watch the database layer. Thousands of queries from one web application is a siren, if anything is listening. Defend, detect, respond. Data on 147 million people, exposed through a vulnerability that sat unpatched for months. Attackers were inside Equifax for 76 days before anyone noticed. An expired certificate caused encrypted traffic to go uninspected, helping the intrusion stay hidden. This is what a slow, quiet breach looks like, and why the boring controls are the ones that actually matter. 147 million people. They didn't break encryption. The entry point was an unpatched vulnerability in a web framework, documented, fixable, and ignored for months before the breach. Once inside, attackers found credentials stored without adequate protection, and one compromised portal handed them access to dozens of databases. That's how Equifax lost a nation's worth of social security numbers. Not through genius, through a patch that never shipped. Case file closed. Next debrief, no malware at all. a crew of young attackers steals millions by walking into phone carrier stores and taking over the one thing every account trusts, your phone number. The SIM swap kill chain, stage by stage, and the moments where it dies. The full stories behind these case files live on our sister channel, Cybersecurity. Debrief complete. Go hunt.